We are on. We are on. Okay, we are adjusted. All right, good to have everybody here. You're probably saying, who is this guy this week? Uh, I'm John Scott. I'm one of the elders. I don't socialize as much as I should and get around and meet everybody. I try, but so a lot of your faces, I know a lot of your faces. I don't know a lot of your, some of your names. So. But good to be in here. I taught this class. I've been gone for about 3 weeks in my travels, and right before I left, I switched out with Mark Duncombe, and I taught that class, and then he took one of my classes a couple of weeks ago. So we all kind of got together, and it's working out good. It's a class on baptism. We haven't talked about baptism extremely a lot, seems like. When we originated this class, it was my idea to come up with a baptism class and make it about a 6 weeks thing and invite a lot of people that had not been baptized and, to study, and then at the conclusion of the class, have a big baptism service, kind of create a lot of excitement, have that. Other churches I've been a part of have done that. And it's always a great, exciting time to be a part of the service. And I think we'll still do that at some point, but this kind of morphed into this, and I'm glad it did. But this week, we're going to talk about, in conjunction with baptism, before baptism, you have evangelism. And I know that's kind of a scary word to some of us. I remember the first time I ever experienced evangelism or, spreading the gospel. I was about 6 years old or 5 years old. I grew up, my dad had a trucking business, and my mom worked with him. And so I stayed with my grandmother every day. And my grandmother had a friend that her husband had a used car lot, so she always had a nice car. And she would take my grandmother around town in Bridgeport, and they would park off the end of one street and walk the other end of the street, knocking doors. And a little kid, and they'd drag me with them, and I guess it was kind of a security for them, they thought, well, no one's going to I can't get in too much trouble. I got a little kid here. But it worked out pretty well. I'm glad she did that. I mean, I understood what was going on, and they did a good work. I guess a lot of people think these days that's kind of nobody's, well, I guess you're scared, first of all, just go down the street and knock on doors. It's a different time. But it still works. A few years ago at this church, we had decided to do evangelism. I was a deacon at the time, and I got everybody together. We started having a Wednesday night class on evangelism and what to do. We decided we're going to go out to New Fairview, and we're going to take everybody out there in cars, and we're going to knock on doors. And some people said, well, I'm not doing that. I will drive you out there and watch you go up there and knock on this door, but I'm not going to do that. So that's okay. We need people that can do everything. So that's what we did. And it was funny. It was scary. We got dogs after us. We got, everything in the world that could happen to you happened to us. Nobody got hurt very bad. Ron Sanders he was a vet, practicing vet back then. And he was the one that said, I am not going to knock on a door, but I will go protect you from the dogs. I'll try to help out, in that way. And he did that. But by the end of the day, he was the one talking and knocking on door. It turned out very good. We had 5 baptisms out of that one Saturday at New Fairview. That was exciting. 3 different families came and placed membership, and they were baptized and placed membership. And so it was exciting. It was so exciting, we decided never to do it again. I'm still not quite sure what that was all about, but I'm just telling you, it will still work. At some point, we can do everything in the world. We can make friendships. I'm easily get off on the wrong track. So don't, but I just like to talk about it. What do we think of when we think of evangelism? I think the modern day style is we make a friend, they turn it into a really good friend. We go out to eat, we bond with them, and we play golf with them. We do all these things with them, and we never share the gospel with them. That's what I've done, and that's not the point. The point is to get to know them a little bit, bond with them a little bit, and then share the gospel with them pretty quick. Oftentimes we don't treat it that way. We do everything except share the gospel with them because that's the scary part. There was a poll done just a couple of years ago, and members or Christians increasingly feel their statement is, we don't have the right to put this on people, to share the gospel with people. It's not the right thing to do. Do you know 53% of Christians, when asked about evangelism, answer that way? We don't feel like we have the right to impose on others. Maybe some of you feel that way because it is a modern day statement of our culture. I think we kind of don't want to butt in, We want to mind our own business, just live our lives, and don't share the gospel with people. But the truthful is, what's our purpose? Our purpose, a big part of our purpose, is to share the gospel, and so we need to think about that. I've done just like I've told you about. I've been blessed in this world with so many friends in the church and outside the church. I travel all over the country. I'm a shotgun sports shooter. I've just come on 3 weeks went to Las Vegas and Tucson. I've got tons of friends that do that. We travel all together. You know how many of them I presented the gospel to? Maybe 5 over the last 20 years. That's not a real good record because there's a lot more that need that. And so I'm not looking at you saying that. I'm looking at me saying, man, I need to work on this. I need to get past the developing the friendship part and going into the present the gospel part. That's what Jesus did. Jesus made people feel uncomfortable right away. You ever notice that? When he would talk to somebody and present the gospel, look at the New Testament, the way he did it. He would do a little small talk about 15 to 20 seconds and go straight into what he wanted to answer. And they either accepted it or they didn't. And I'm not saying 15 to 20 seconds, but I'm saying, kind of get on with it a little bit. That's what I'm guilty of not doing. I don't get on with it fast enough. I wrote a few things down here. What I've had last time I taught in here, I had this board completely filled up and I didn't get to any of it. So this time I'm going the minimalistic approach and do a few things. But we're talking about personal evangelism. Prayer, biblical knowledge, a story, the right attitude, and obedience. The number one thing you need to do, or what we all need to do, is when we start in personal evangelism, is pray. Pray first. Pray a long time about it. Have any of you been involved in kind of campaigns or personal evangelism works at churches where you might have been before you came here, or in this church somewhere else? I'm interested because, there's been a lot of times in other churches that I've been a part of, we have been involved in different campaigns, but like I say, we always have great results. So always good things happen, and then we just don't do it. The first time I taught this lesson, I used some material Jake had given me. I'd already prepared my own, but I thought, well, mine's not as good as Jake's, so I'm just going to use Jake's. Turned out mine was much better than Jake's. And so this time I'm going straight to mine. But C.S. Lewis wrote a book that we're all familiar with, Mere Evangelism. And there's another books that have been written about this topic. But one thing C.S. Lewis said that I thought was great. He had 2 lists of names. One list was those that he prayed for their conversion, and the other list of names were for those that he give thanks for their conversion. He had high expectations. Do you ever think about going and witnessing to somebody and you get a little nervous and you think, well, they're not going to be interested anyway. And so you just kind of let down and you don't go through with it. I've done that a lot of times, but this shows how confident C.S. Lewis was. First thing you got to do, start a list. We did have a little thing a while back, a year ago or so. We called it, and it wasn't originally from this church, but we called it "Who's Your One?" You remember that? All of us have a one, that a good friend or somebody we know that needs the gospel, and he can be your one. And that's a good way to start this. It's like I say, we thought it was such a good idea. It lasted a while, and then we dropped our ones. I don't know why we did that, but we need to get our ones back. I have a one in Stephenville, Texas. Excellent. Well, he's not an excellent person. I don't know who I'm kidding. He's an alcoholic. He's a mean guy. Not very many people like him. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I like him because I knew him before he turned into that person. And I've tried to talk to him about his salvation and things off and on for a long time, but he's my one, and I'm not giving up on him. But I'm just afraid at this point he's not going to live long enough for results because he's in terrible health right now. So don't wait too long on your one. Don't make the mistake of getting a one, getting it all ready and everything else, but just never actually getting that far. So we start with prayer. Somebody would like to read Acts 1:14, that'd be great. I can get to it. See, I got to talking before I was ready, and I've actually haven't got to any of my lesson yet. I'm trying to pull it up now.
I got it.
Okay, read it.
They all joined together constantly in prayer, along with the women and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and
Okay. First Christians prayed a lot. First Christians had to pray a lot. We live in a society where truth is we should feel like we have to pray a lot too, but sometimes we don't. Prayer is the number one thing you can do before you try to start any evangelistic effort, because a lot of times God is the one that softens a person's heart. Do any of you believe in most everything's a coincidence? I mean, it hadn't been too long ago, my wife would tell me something that happened, and to her, God did this, God put this person in their life, and God did this, and God did this. And it just kind of hacked me off. Now, I'm sorry it hacked me off, but I didn't believe that much in luck.
I got to tell a story really quick.
Okay?
This was I do Christmas lights, and my guys were on a house, and I need to go to a house that I need to get done. So I brought my best helping wife with me, and I'm up on the roof. There's a spot where I can't get to, and I just brought one ladder with us, and I need a taller ladder. So we were debating on what we're gonna do. With ask the neighbor if we can get his, and I was gonna strap them together, which was not a good idea. But and so we were literally just gonna.
What could go wrong?
Buy one and then take it back. Yeah, we were that people out there. I say all this because we're getting close to having to make a decision on what we need to do, and she even gets in the car and goes and tries to find another crew that might have been out at this neighborhood, and then gets back. And we were literally about to go, and all of a sudden, I kid you not, these lawn guys show up, and they're doing the house next door, and they have the perfect ladder. and I go and ask the guy, he gives it to me, knock it out. And it, it's just, you could say that's a
It's a
coincidence.
amazing
but
coincidence, wasn't
I maybe got $40 was like,
it?
but it just,
Yeah.
you got to see those kind of things and take it for, that's not a coincidence. That's him looking out for it.
Well, I'm the guy that turned into that guy that looks for those things. And when things happen like that, it's not just luck. It's not just coincidence. It's a sign. It's a message. I think it's God's helping us. It's something that we're led to. Maybe not 100% of the time. I mean, I still believe there are a few things, but yeah.
I love the word favor.
Uh-huh.
Favor of God.
Uh-huh.
And you can take an experience like that and say God's favor or God showed me his favor. Something I pray for. We have course some pray for them all the time, saying that they want and know that they're going to receive the favor of God. So they walk into it looking for those opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it just didn't come to you naturally. But if you think about it, and if you let prayer work on your heart and your mind and your soul and your whole being, it'll come to you every day driving down the road or doing whatever you do at work or wherever. You see these things that are all coming, and it's more than a coincidence. It's something that God will give us the opportunity, and we don't look at it as it's up to me to get the results. Results don't have anything to do with it. It's the obedient part of spreading the gospel. Sometimes results come, sometimes results don't come. But God cares about us in the obedience part, not the results part. God provides the results. We don't have to worry about the results. And a lot of times that's where I get sidetracked. I'm thinking so far ahead in the future about the guy I'm eating lunch with him, and I haven't even presented the gospel to him yet. And I'm thinking about, way down the road, what's going to happen? Will he or will he not or whatever? That's the wrong thing to be thinking about. Another thing I've got up there is biblical knowledge. We can have all the impassioned speeches, beautiful words, everything we want when we're trying to witness to somebody. But if we don't have the basic knowledge of the Bible, we're not going to get anywhere. And we don't have to be a theologian. We don't have to have a degree in Bible, but we do have to know just some basic things, don't we? And there's so many people that say they're Christians. There was another survey done that I looked somewhere. I think it was called the Barnhart Survey in 2016. They surveyed all these Christians and they asked them to just do a little bit of a questionnaire on basic biblical knowledge and just a few little things. 73% of the people that said they were Christians or said that they were Christians and agreed to do that flunked it terribly to the result that the surveyor said there's really no evidence that these people know what being a Christian is. 73%. So, our churches, our towns, our cities, I think a lot of times we're filled with people that say they're Christians, but they just don't go to the effort to have basic biblical knowledge. And I'm not saying we got to know just a ton of stuff, but we have to know basic biblical knowledge to do what we need to do. 2 Timothy 2:15. Somebody look that one up right quick. But that commands us to study about things and to know that we are approved as a worker. Okay.
Do your best to present yourself to God as one approved for work, dishonest, to be ashamed, and to correctly handle the word.
Okay. That's pretty basic, isn't it? That's pretty basic. Another thing I think of when I think about getting into the scriptures, I'm 70 years old. When I was young, long, long ago, I thought about a lot of things when I was presenting the gospel. the main people I tried to present the gospel were people that went to a different church than I went to. And I wanted to convince them that they were wrong and I was right. That's not presenting the gospel. And I'm sorry it took me so long to understand that, but it took me quite a while to understand that. And I'm not just bashing Church of Christ people. I did that as a Baptist person. And then I did it as a Church of Christ person. Okay? I spread the love around. That was my number one goal. Remember, I've done a lot of different things over the years. One thing I did, I've always been in the oil and gas business. When the oil business was cratered, I'd sell cars. I'd do whatever I had to do. I was selling cars at a dealership one time. And man, we had this big discussion going. There was Baptist, Methodist, Church of Christ people. I'm just lumping everybody together for the sake of showing you what's going on. And all we did was argue. I remember this guy said one time, you had to give a tenth on your offering, because that's what the Bible said. I said, you shouldn't give more, you shouldn't give less, you give a tenth. And he'd quote the Old Testament scripture. Huh?
Was he a Jew?
He was a Baptist.
That name before Jew.
There you go. I know. He wasn't a Jew, so it didn't apply. But I'm just saying that I probably do remember it. I just don't want to tell you what it was. But we have our own little nitpick thing that I was on him about that he didn't do. So it gets into these weird little crazy things like that. And evangelism just gets thrown out with the bathwater.
John, I was thinking about the class Derek did about a year ago on this topic in your homework, where we were talking about your word choice in conversation, how little changes can lead to quick moments to share or opportunities to open up a conversation like that, right? So saying like, oh, I'm having a good day, you can say a little thing, right? Like, isn't it great the Lord made this day and I'm just enjoying temperature, or enjoying what God's given us today, or whatever it is, leads to other conversation, or just an opportunity to share. They say they're having a good day. I think it's great that the Lord's done this, and this is how it's worked in my life. And 2 Timothy, right after 15, 16, New American Standard says, avoid worldly and empty chatter. Lead to further ungodliness. That's such a, I don't know, humbling statement to think of that, because normally our default is empty chatter, right? So yeah, we're in conversation, but intentionality with word choice can lead to really productive and fruitful conversations.
That could be called a clue, couldn't it? When you're talking with people and you get subtle things, you get word choices, we pick up on things. So when you're talking to somebody, can you tell when a friend of yours, you're talking to them and they don't really seem distraught or anything, but you can tell something's not quite right? And they're really, I've had people do that for 2 or 3 days and I don't pick up on it, and finally they just blurt out, I need help with this. You big dummy, you're not taking the subtle hit. And so watch for those clues, because every problem somebody has, the gospel is the answer to that problem, no matter what the problem. And so that's what Trey said. That's just a clue. And when you pick up on that clue, I'm going down a completely different tangent here, so don't worry about it. Objections. Have you ever witnessed to somebody and you get an objection? Well, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do that. Honor the objection. Don't just jump on it and say, no, that's not right, that's not right, that's not right. Never get in an argument. Never get in an argument. And I say that from a guy that always used to get in arguments. I truly did. And I learned my lesson. Don't get in an argument. You're never going to get anywhere.
In Luke 10, when Jesus was sending out the 72, he told them to go and look for people of peace. And I think that first of all, that we're people of peace, that we have that peace passes on understanding, but as well, when we're looking for those who share Jesus with, have coffee with, or whatever, we're not looking for those who are ready for a fight or on the fight, but instead we're looking for people who are of peace, who are willing to discuss these deeper things, and I think they'll stand up.
that kind of leads us. Well, and when you witness to somebody in peace and love, and they just don't want no part of you, you get mad at them and walk away. You don't get mad at them and walk away. You walk away in peace as a friend and as a person that you don't let it bother you. That was another area that I struggled with over when I was a younger person. I would kind of take things personally and, uh, you know,
You know, I've had situations like that where you feel like, brother, they my time. And I've seen that person 2 or 3 years down the road, and they come up and say, you really helped me that way. And the whole time you thought, man, I was wasting my time. I feel like an idiot or something like that. But, so you never know when this thing's in. It just may not show the results at that point.
mm-hmm.
Sometimes down the road.
Yeah.
We're just looking as the seed sometimes. Kind of thinking back on Brian. You just never know when you have impact on somebody.
You're exactly right. I was selling cars one time. A guy with the Texas Rangers, he was a catcher named Gary Venner. He had just moved up from a AAA ball club, and he was playing for the Rangers. This was 2003, 4, somewhere in there. But I sold him a Suburban or something. We became good friends. We started playing racquetball together. We'd do this, golf, and all these things. So I decided I needed to witness to him and invite him to church. But I never did. A little bit later, another of our friends, that was our golfing buddy, I found out Gary had started going to church with him. So I told Gary, I said, well, what are you going to church with me? Why are you going to that church? He said, because he asked me. Because he asked me to. Man, I felt about, I never had that opportunity. I'm glad he was going to church, but I wanted him to come to church with me. He turned into a great Christian fellow, but I want him to be my great Christian fellow, But if he hadn't turned into a great Christian fellow, and my other friend hadn't invited him to go to church, hopefully I would have eventually. But people are out there, and we need to go ahead and do it. A story. Let's just jump down to. We're kind of running through here, but everybody has a story. You've got one of the greatest stories that I've never heard, I bet. I've got a pretty cool story too. Don't be afraid to share that with people that are looking for something, that are looking for the gospel. Say, this is where I've been. This is how I've lived my life. And this is what the gospel has done for me. This is what Jesus Christ has done for me in my life. That's going to make a bigger impact than all the pamphlets and tracts and all these things put together, is your story. We all have a story of how we came to Christ, and all of you know your story. I had a family, a grandmother. My dad was just a rotten, no good from the get-go. Never had nothing to do with him. He didn't like me, and he died when I was in high school, and that's gone. I don't have any fond memories of him. I love my mother to death. I loved her so much, but she wasn't a strong Christian lady. But my grandmother, she was a terror when it came to presenting the gospel and doing the right thing and taking me to church and not taking no for an answer on everything. She is the sole reason that I'm a Christian today. We've all got somebody. We have to have somebody in our lives to help us in that. It doesn't have to be your mom or dad or whatever, but it's got to be somebody. And everybody has at least somebody. And if somebody in your life, you may be that somebody. I've got a lot of friends that just, I hate to, they're human. they have their own faults. They go through life doing some things that I don't think they ought to do. But it's because nobody ever really explained things to them very good. And they depend on me to be kind of a guiding person in their life. And I try to take the opportunity to do that. So don't be afraid to do that. You're not butting in, you're helping. You really are. Now, I'm not telling you to do every little thing, where you are butting in, because that'll get you in big trouble. But there's more to it. The right attitude. Having the right attitude in this is very, very important. More damage has been done in our cause by people that go out spewing things in the wrong attitude. So you need the right attitude. Conduct yourself in evangelism with love and humility. If you always put those things first, you'll be successful, and no matter what, love and humility. 1 Corinthians 13, 1-3. Somebody look that up. I should have handed these out ahead of time, but I'll read it. 1 Corinthians 13, 1-3. If I speak in the tongues of men or angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and all I have is faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to the hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, again, I have nothing. So everything we do in humility and love. Have you ever done anything for the wrong reason? I know you have. I know I have a bunch of times. That matters. That matters. Just here, I can't do any better in 1 Corinthians. Have the right attitude. I'm going to go ahead and do this last one because I think it's very important. I think sometimes when we get carried away in this, it's often tempting to scale down the biblical truths and the necessary things that it takes to be a Christian in order to get a lot of results. I think of TV preachers sometimes. I think of a lot of different times that we present a good. I was trying to hire somebody for a crew one time. I was having a lot of trouble. I was basically running too many people off the job site because I just, I felt like this. I knew what I needed done. People weren't obeying me. People weren't doing the right job. And so I would just clear house. Get your stuff and get out of here. We're done. And finally, it came to the point where I couldn't find anybody to work for me. Imagine that. Humble, sweet person like me. And the guy that owned the business I was consulting for came to me. He said, I've made you a partner in this deal because you've got what it takes to get things done. And I don't. He was a humble, kind person. I hate to say that. Not that I'm not a humble, kind person, but I would make sure things got done. I would handle it. I separated it, and I was a little mean, if you want to know the truth. But I got things done. And he said, I put you in this deal because you could do that, and I can't do that. But you have excelled all expectations. That wasn't a compliment. You're doing too good of a job at this. You've got to calm down and realize people are people, and let's get people in here and finish this job. And he was right. It made a big change in me, the way I did things. And this is the same way. Obedience is something we have to do But a lot of times we get carried away in the results. It's not about the results. If we're obedient and we do what we need to do, the results will be there. They truly will. You know, this church is growing so much right now. We've got a lot of people coming in from the Metroplex that are moving here. And I don't know what the next couple of years is going to bring. It's exciting. It's very exciting. You've got all these people coming in. The results are going to be here, but it's up to us to welcome all the newcomers here with love and kindness and respect. And maybe some that come here are going to be totally different than we are. I'm kind of glad they're going to be totally different than I am in a lot of ways, because we need people that are totally different than we are sometimes. So that's an exciting time. In our personal evangelism, we're only responsible for God's obedience. That's what we're responsible for, the obedient part. We're not responsible for the results. You know, God is going to prosper us the way God's going to prosper us. God's going to save people the way God's going to save people. It's not up to us to save anybody. Is personal evangelism, is it the responsibility of all of us here? I think it is. I think it is. And I think we just kind of let it get washed over us a little bit, thinking about how scary it might be, or what, I don't really want to do this and whatnot. And we just kind of go our way and not fulfill what we need to. But it is all of us our responsibility. And like we said earlier, what Trey was saying, I think God places us in strategic positions of not power, but of influence. He places us in strategic positions of influence. So I think that's something we need to be on the lookout for every day. We've got a lot more influence over people than we think we do. Does anybody got an idea, or anybody want to say anything before we kind of have a prayer?
I have one more thought.
Mm-hmm.
Impressive as Oregon was, Ole Miss still got all the attention off the field because of Lane Kiffin. I realize that should not have anything to do with what the committee will do, but I am very interested, Heather and everyone else, if Ole Miss starts getting discounted a little bit because of the possibility that Lane Kiffin may not be there after this Friday. Totally off the wall in terms of what the CFP committee should be doing, but they have been off the wall pretty much all year anyway.
If you just told somebody, hey, I've been reading this book, and every time I read this book, I feel encouraged, I learn something new about myself, it teaches me something, go read it for a week, pick any spot, and if you don't feel encouraged, come back and tell me that you didn't get something out of it. Mm-hmm. And then you tell them it's the Bible, right? Like, it would work.
Uh-huh.
We have to stand on the Word of God, stand on the source of evangelism, and I think sometimes it's simple as that.
Mm-hmm. You just got to start.
Yeah, just two things real quick. There's a method conducted by college inductive life, where you can read a passage or talking with someone, and just ask them three questions. What does it say about Jesus? What does it say about humanity? And what's God next to you?
Mm-hmm.
And just that kind of goes against this. I've got to have all the knowledge there, because it's God who does the teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thought is from Ephesians 2:10. It says, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us." And this is that greatest work we can share.
Mm-hmm. You don't have to know a lot of stuff. You just got to be willing to present it to what you do know to people. And if they start questioning things you don't know, say, let's work it out. Let's meet together. You help me and I'll help you. And let's explore this. And let's figure it out. But don't ever let that stop you as your excuse. Well, as soon as I know a little bit more, I'll do this. Because that's not the way it works. You know, evangelism pleases the Lord. That's the number one thing I want to leave with all of you today. I mean, it's pleasing to God. He wants us to spread His name, and that's what we need to do. And I know it's a little scary sometimes, but it shouldn't be. They shouldn't be. I got faith in you. If a bunch of ragtag guys like we did 20 years ago go to New Fairview and have results, I mean, I know you guys could do it. I promise me I know you guys could do it. And we don't even do that anymore because it works so well. But we'll figure something out that works really good and we'll stay with it, okay? But one other thing I wanted to say, Faye, I know a lot of you may not know Faye Whitaker. She's an older lady that's been going to church here since a long, long time ago because she turns 100 years old next week. And we're trying to figure out, Faye's a wonderful lady. And we want to do something especially for her. And she may be watching today. And yeah, I'm talking about you, Faye. But we're trying to come up with something that, Faye's not really, we don't want to all go over to her house and do all these things, but we're trying to come up with something. So when we do, I'll fill you in, and we're going to send her a special video card, or maybe have a drive-by, just go by her when she's out on the front porch and honk at her and wave at her. So be thinking about that if you come up with another good idea that we might could do for Faye. So we're going to do that. Okay, I think it's time's up. So let's have a prayer, and then we'll be dismissed. Father in heaven, Lord, we just love you so very, very much. And Father, I thank you for being here with us this morning as we talk about how to spread your gospel here. Father, it's been a wonderful study on baptism. And Father, it entails so many more things than just going under the water. It is the way we live our lives and the way we are brave enough and have hope in you enough to share your gospel with others. Father, I pray that all of us will take a hard look at this in our lives, and that because of our great love for you and because of all the wonderful things you do for us every day, that we will want to tell others about you and your Son, Jesus. Father, all those that are sick here physically, we pray for them. All those that are suffering spiritually in other ways, Father, we pray for them. We know you know who they are. So, Father, be with all of us now. We love you. We thank you for everything you have because you've given it to us. And we bless this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.